All right.
All right, all right,
All
all
right, mics
right.
are open. Starting soon is down. Hello and welcome back for all of everybody joining us today. We are going to be Geek on My Sleeve and going to be doing a in-depth deep dive geek out of Way of Shadows. Silly me, I do not have the names up in front of me.
You're
By
good.
Brent Weeks.
Yes, yes. Widely popular book, one that I know I have seen constantly back pre-COVID-19 when I'd go with the little one, walk around the bookstore. It was always there, kind of popped out, caught my attention. And our good buddy John, who is joining us as a voice in our head.
Hello. Thank you for having me here.
He recommended it, and yeah, what a ride.
It is indeed a roller coaster of a book. It is fairly long. What was the time? What, like 24, 25 hours of read time?
I believe so. Yeah, it was a longer book compared to some of the ones we've done recently. Not quite as long as some of the other epic fantasy books we've done, but I felt, and we're going to do a spoiler-free review, kind of get into get into some of those details there. But we were talking about it a bit offline beforehand, and I think you made the perfect analogy, John, because you've read the whole trilogy, right?
I have. I've read it twice, and this would be my third time going through.
Okay. Peter and myself, this is our first time reading it, so we don't have to worry about spoiling anything in the future books. But I believe you said that you felt like this book fit more of like a prequel type format.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's seen Ip Man on Netflix.
No.
Um, I know you have because you're the one that introduced it to me.
Oh, I
I
did. What
IP
was it?
Man, IP Man.
Oh, IP
Ip,
Man. Yes.
it's
Okay. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes. I
pronounced
understand.
Ip Man. Anyway, so that first movie that you see in the series, obviously that's the first movie. Goes into the second and the third. Well, they later introduce a prequel movie that shows how he comes to be the master that he is. The first book for this series, out of the three series book, is essentially what I would call the prequel to the other two. There's a lot of information of character building and like a lot of history information regarding kingdoms, uh, king names, essentially, key players, and the
Mhm.
overall story. So this would be more of a character building book rather than like this is like a bunch of badass stuff is happening, which it did at the end. Um, but it's not as you talked about before. It's not fleshed out quite yet. There's still a lot of stuff that you really don't know uh, that works and as a system, like the magic system, the combat. You really don't know the full scale of what is going to occur in the rest of these for the other two books here.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the book. Um, but that was something that almost lost me in the beginning. And to be honest, if I picked it up and was just reading it in the bookstore, it would have been a challenge for me. I don't know that I would have actually purchased it. Once I got through the intro and we did kind of the character building and got everything settled, it started to move a lot quicker for me and I got invested in the story. Um, but it at least felt for me personally that it was a slow slog in the beginning. And I understand the importance of it. And for Azoth, like it really helped us get him established as a character. but for me, it just felt slow. And I think I was talking to Pete a bit about that earlier in the week, and we might have even, I think, even talked a bit about it on the last Geek Out, right, Pete?
Yeah, I briefly mentioned it. For me, like, this book was difficult because, as we know, I'm horrible with names. And not only do we have a lot of people with one name, we get people with like 2 to 3 names to the same character. That kind of messed with me.
Yeah.
And then like it didn't have the initial hook at the beginning, kind of like you were saying, and then like it didn't come together until like the final third of the book. Like right there at the end, it finally started to be like, okay, now I'm interested in this. But throughout the whole book, like I got probably halfway through the book and I just felt like I felt like I was missing stuff. Things weren't connecting. After I finally, because I went back and reread the beginning again, after I got to the end, it all made sense. It's like, okay, the whole book is foreshadowing. The whole book is what potentially could be. I'm kind of of the same mind. Like, if this wasn't something that we needed to do, I probably wouldn't have been, too enthralled with it and could have would have set it down. But there's a lot of potential moving forward, and since it's of the understanding that it's kind of a prequel, probably continue it. But at the same time, it was quite difficult to get through until the ending where we finally started getting the real action.
I had trouble tracking everything as well, and it might just be transitioning back into the epic fantasy mindset because some of the other epic fantasies that I've read, there are a lot of characters, there are a lot of pieces on the board that you have to keep track of. Um, but yeah, the name changes kind of threw me off. They would sometimes refer to people by first name, last name, and then like our main character essentially has what, like three different names, four different names throughout the book. He goes by Azoth in the beginning, then it's Kyler Stern, and then by the end it's Night Angel. And then same thing with all the other characters just bouncing around, and it's important for the story. But I know, like my first time through, it was definitely hard to track everyone and then just keep track of all the different characters as well. So,
Uh, I mean, for me, um, I really, I when I first read this book, and as I continue reading it, I ended up categorizing people into the different arcs that were happening. So like
okay.
with the different names that you get, like all right, so obviously all these names, all these characters, we have Azoth, we have Jarl, we have Doggerel, like all these people are going to be linked together. So when you
Hmm.
think of one of them, you should intentionally try and think of the others that are linked to that person as well. And you know that at some point throughout the story that they will eventually be introduced once again.
Yeah, that's a good point. And they do all make that same transition together, right? Like when they move into the next arc, we go to Kylar and Elaine instead of Azoth and Dollgirl. So,
I guess that's a good way of looking at it.
yeah, that makes a lot more sense to kind of frame it that way. Um, but before we get too deep into the book, um, I feel like we say this every week, but man, what a crazy week! Uh, how are you guys doing?
So going back into the real world and everything being meticulously monitored and cleaned again is very lackluster. I was
Yeah.
ready to get back full swing into life, and then life said, wait, did you clean that? Who touched that? Hold on. And there's a lot of information that isn't being conveyed very well, and it's frustrating. It's very much kind of like this book where we've got 8 different
Uh,
names and all of it's foreshadowing, and we're just waiting for the penny to drop, and I'm just not quite satisfied with it. But it's
is it foreshadowing for the zombie apocalypse? Is that what this is all leading up to?
foreshadowing for once people figure out WTF and where the fudge is and how to get there. Yeah.
Fudge. Sounds like somebody else is getting some fudge out. Crinkle, crinkle.
Oh, I need to get
Uh,
stuff off my desk.
oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, I've got
Like,
these
oopsie.
I've got these cable ties that I stuck together that I've used for a bunch of different random stuff.
Oh, interesting. But that's what desks are for. Put stuff on there that we might need later.
No flat surface is safe.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit beforehand, but we play in the space of fantasy and lit RPGs. I know you guys have been doing a bit more gaming lately. So tell us about the new Amazon game, Pete.
So, Amazon, you need a new name. Trying to find the name Crucible. Apparently, everybody has a map that involves the word Crucible, and I couldn't find it for the life of me. There's very little information out there. Granted, it is fairly new. A couple people got into the early beta, blah, blah, blah. The game mode and the game itself, I am very excited about because I also enjoyed games like Battleborn, which died, Paragon, which died, and this gives me a very similar flavor and feel. It's kind of tricky to
Mm.
describe the game, but the
They're all
mechanics are great.
MOBA based,
No,
right?
it's not MOBA.
No?
There's no lanes.
Oh,
There's
really?
It's kind of MOBA based where I guess it's very tricky to explain the game, but for me, I kind of think like WildStar actions. You only get like 4 moves. Couple people get, additional passive-esque things. A lot of the characters
Mm,
have kind of like higher mobility where everybody or almost everybody has like a dash type thing. Several different game
okay.
modes, a lot of fun. Uh, Typical
Worth
Amazon.
worth checking out?
I really enjoy it, and I would like to see the game live, but due to the game style, I see it dying just because every other game
Mm,
that I've been invested in and I've loved that does something new and different, and that's their biggest thing. Like their main Heart of the Hive game mode is very unique, very competitive. Essentially you have a PvE aspect where you're battling
okay.
monsters and you're trying to farm and get XP, and then you have a kind of like King of the Hill aspect where you have certain resources that you can capture that give you XP. So you've got people that need to have high mobility, go capture them, and then you've also got the PvP aspect of killing people gets you XP. So you've got to find the balance between splitting up because the map's so big and you know doing the PvE kills, getting XP while you're on your way to a capture point. But then if there is an engagement, um, dying is pretty hindersome. So you've got to either reposition,
I've heard
re-engage.
that about life,
Yeah.
dying being hindersome.
So it's got a lot of elements. There's definitely the hardest part about it is learning the map. The map is the same every time, but there's a lot going on. Yeah.
I'd say that's the hardest part with any new game. That like if you're in a limited space, like the first thing you need to do, aside from figuring out what your character can do,
Mhm.
is memorize that map. Because as soon as you start knowing where things are, what the angles are, then you can
Yeah.
start creating all the tactics and strategies that you need to beat
Then
other people.
then the real game begins, right?
Yeah, learning
Yeah.
curve.
So what you been playing, John?
Well, recently Terraria came out with their last patch, super patch, that
Like
includes a lot of
last
different.
ever, or just most recent?
Uh, in terms of patches, this will be the last largest patch. Obviously, they'll be doing bug fixes, all that fun stuff, but they're no longer going to be like adding any extra content to it.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Last new content patch,
yes,
unless something breaks.
exactly. Like
Okay.
obviously, they'll still pay attention to it, but they're going to be looking elsewhere, diverting their efforts to other endeavors. But in terms of like gameplay, if you've ever played Minecraft or anything that has to do with open world builders, this is definitely a really fun and interesting game that has a lot of different enemies, bosses, building. Uh, you can make anything building related
Right
with
on.
different biomes, and you can utilize the entire map that it gives you. And the another thing would be, you can do Iron Man mode. There's different difficulties with that. Customize your character, and obviously when you load up a different world, they're all different each time. So
Right on. A lot
yeah,
of replayability and pretty cheap, right?
yes,
Hmm.
yes it
Righto.
is.
So very symbolic. We've got the beginning and the end. The beginning of the new game and the end of an old game.
And we will see which one dies. Peter's
Oh, I'm
predicted the death of Crucible.
and it's not
So,
that I want it to die. Like I thoroughly enjoy the game, but if you enjoy League of Legends, Paragon came out and it was like a souped up 3-dimensional version of which was epic. And then it
yeah,
was just gone. And same thing
yeah,
with Battleborn. Like Battleborn was made by the guys who do Borderlands, and
yeah. I
Borderlands is
think
huge.
Battleborn was partially timing,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah, because
It
it
was
it
very
launched.
similar to WildStar.
No, it launched right when Overwatch launched. So they were competing holiday
Oh,
season with Blizzard. So they literally
you
just got
can't compete with
stomped.
Blizzard.
But
No.
the game was epic, but
Yeah.
it's dead. So ignore that.
Well, I find obviously timing is everything, but I also find if the game people are having difficulties trying to trust developers because a lot of games being released for, I'll just say PC, there's a lot of games that are just being released in beta or alpha, and there's
Mm,
so many bugs that people play with that it's reducing. Like obviously there are players who love to play games. They come back and they give feedback for the games that they play, but a lot of people are just playing to have fun. And when people come across those game breaking bugs, like let's say the game freezes, all you've been playing for the last 4 hours is now gone. People are get really upset and stop playing your game.
yeah.
uh, and then on top of that, when games do get released, you brought up the term playability, replayability, and if the storyline only lasts 12 hours, they're gonna get it. Like the initial buy is awesome,
Yeah.
and then games beat. All right, time to move on to something else. So it's just like a short term. Like, yeah, this game is awesome. All right, let's go look at something else now.
Ooh, shiny. What's over here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I am a filthy casual, and the only game I've really been playing lately is Pokemon Go. And they revamped Community Day to make it more remote friendly. Got my fair share of shiny acorns today, um, sea dots, and yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing the last week. But there's a lot of interesting games on the horizon. Um, Obviously, we're gamers here. You guys have any good suggestions? Want to game with us? Feel free to throw that in the chat or the comments below. We're hoping to revamp our Discord server here soon, and who knows, maybe we'll incorporate some gaming aspects on that. Do Geek on My Sleeve game night. or whatnot. What do you think, Pete?
Lost in the Void. I have a
Lost in the Void.
very ADD slash one track mind, and with those combined, I go ooh shiny, then I might lose a week to that shiny thing. So
Yeah.
I would enjoy it.
John and I are over here nodding along. Yes, yes, we know this.
I would
We
enjoy
know this.
it, but I could see it being problematic. I think it fits a lot of our community if we got more content out for the lit stuff.
We're working on it. I know if anybody's been watching any of our content, they know that Peter wants more lit RPG in our life, and we're getting there. We're getting there. Book 8 of The Land is finally coming out. We've been
Or
toying
for
with the
Audible.
idea for Audible. Yes, we've been toying with the idea of diving into that. So, yeah, speaking of Ooh Shiny, The Way of Shadows intro. Um, help me set it up there, guys. Like, we talked about how we felt it was important for character development. Definitely put it all in perspective at the end when we kind of come full circle back to Rat/Roth and the importance of his character.
Do you mind if I interrupt you real quick? I wanted to
Oh,
do
go ahead.
something real quick before we begin.
Go ahead.
I just want to do a shout out real quick for those who are struggling with this pandemic. Obviously, we all have our part to play. However, I'd like to advocate, please keep your 6 foot distance. Please keep your mask on when you go out to public spaces. Obviously, I'm an essential employee, so like I understand where people come from. I've worked a lot of retail, food industry. I'm also huge into nutrition. So if you have questions or issues with something, please hit me up. Email me at j.hopkins8643@yahoo.com. Ask those questions, and I'll be more than glad to reply and help you out the best I can.
Yeah. Well said. We'll get that in our description as well. That way people can find it down there. And really don't want to politicize it at all, but like the biggest thing is, think of your fellow man, right? That's why keeping the distance and wearing the masks and, as Peter talked about, douse everything with cleaning solution and whatnot. It's not always a matter of whether or not we'll get sick, but we need to think of the other individuals out there who are autoimmune deficient and high risk and so on and so forth, right? So, yeah, we're in it all together. Even as everything starts to slowly open back up.
Yeah, and slowly opening up. It's very much a wishful thinking situation. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is it's kind of a culture shock for a lot of people. And as you know, with all of our animes and video games and yada da da, for the Asian cultures, it's normal or it's ingrained. If you are sick, you wear a mask. And with how widespread this is for our NA culture, people feel as if we're infringing on their rights, which I don't so much see it that way. But anyway, Way of Shadows.
Hey, we said we weren't going to make it political.
Yeah.
Way of Shadows.
Yeah.
Where, yes. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about books is it allows you to kind of walk in their shoes and get empathy through their experiences. And the main characters are pretty much like living in the slums, right? Death is around the corner everywhere.
It's like, let's get away from real life and let's talk about the fantasy book here where we go into the slums and let's talk about death. All right.
and dying.
So
Yes.
I really enjoy an underdog vibe, but like
Hmm.
this hook didn't really grab me because I don't know, it's not that I wasn't comfortable to listen to or whatnot, but it was very much like everybody's dying, I can't find food, people are being raped, people you're an orphan in this guild of which doesn't care. You're in an area that's ran down, is a cluster of so many different cultures because all they've managed to do is just barely survive. And yeah.
I'm with you. Um, After I got invested, it I understood the necessity for it, but the hook didn't get me, and it felt very generic in the beginning. Um, and maybe we've just been spoiled with some of the books that we've read recently, right, Pete? A lot of them do a really good job getting you hooked from the get-go. What kept me going with this book was John's great recommendation for it and the simple fact that looking online, it is just so well received by everyone. Um,
Yeah, what kept me going is the little bit of foreshadowing where they're like, oh yeah, there was this epic blacksmith who created these 6 jewels. And then you get like a
yeah,
little bit hit when Azoth becomes Kyler and is hanging out with oh the
Logan.
or Logan, and he starts talking about the story and whatnot and how one of the guys got snuffed. And it's just like oh man, I really had to pay attention for the foreshadowing, and I kept thinking
Yes.
about my gear and the grind, and then I kept going off into the oh, who's the big guy who snaps his fingers and kills people, um infinity
Thanos.
stones. So like I was interested
Oh,
due to the like
like, wait, what? Fandom
I want to
shift?
get that epic gear, so I wanted the stones, and then I
Yeah,
wanted to get all of them. That way I could just fix stuff. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The foreshadowing was certainly subtle, and I caught some of those pieces later, and I definitely caught a lot more the second time around. Where if you're not paying attention, you miss a lot of those pieces, right?
yeah,
Like the interaction with Logan. It's very easy to dismiss this as like, oh, is this foreshadowing for the realm, or is this just more character development because of the importance between Logan's and Kylar's relationship, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Um, and then even with Durzo Blint, the first time we get introduced to him, the first time around, I completely missed what's her name? His lover, is it
Vanda.
Vonda? Yeah,
Vanda.
Vonda. I completely missed that the first time and really didn't realize the importance of that character until the story progressed.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I was just waiting for the combat. I was like, okay, so we're in the guild setting. He's crawling
mhm,
under. He's a little person. He's in a bad situation, life, blah. And then like the guy drops down, and he's pretty much like, oh, I knew you were here the whole time. Yeah, I've had this many. Well, I had a couple before too. Oh, I've already
yeah.
killed this many people. Do you really need me to kill another one? I'm like, all right, all right. Got to have some combat, and
Getting the
then
hype
it
up.
was
All
pretty
right. All
much
right.
like, and we switched perspectives. There's a little bit of blood. Okay, knife comes or sword comes down, and he's like, saw nothing. I've done more than kill kids, and it's like, I didn't get any
Yeah.
combat. Okay, I guess foreshadowing for poisonous spiders, like
I was
that
about to
came
say, like,
through.
we learned more about the spider right there and what type of spider it was and how scared we were of the spider. And I'm like, okay, do I need to pay attention to the spider? Are these spiders a big part of of
Is
this
this Spider?
world.
Is this Spider the new main character? What's going on?
Yeah. Are we going to get a spider point of view here for a moment? Why don't we get to see the sword slashing around?
Yeah. So
Um,
I had a vision of what I wanted to see for combat, and then
mhm.
I didn't get any of it. So yeah.
Like, sorry, oops. Nah.
One of the
I
many reason why Peter likes lit RPG because they are overbearing with the combat there. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
oh no. So obviously, I know where the author is coming from. For this book, they're trying to get the image and the perception into the reader's mind regarding like how they're feeling. So
Hmm.
like in this situation, Azoth is an 11-year-old boy, never grew up with parents, has always lived on the streets, scrounging for, food for the next meal, not only for himself but for two others. On top of that, having to make money to try and support his little guild.
Hmm.
And then like everything gets thrown into a loop when the guild leader starts picking on his group, essentially the two people and him.
Hmm.
As he's like lying underneath the floorboards, like waiting, like in wait, you know like he has all these issues going on, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, a poisonous spider.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
It
am I
does
going to
help with the
die
perspective.
to going to die to like this person in life, this spider? I don't know at this point.
Yeah. This shiny sword that appears in front of my face
Yeah.
um, as Durzo Blint gives his threats. Um, yeah.
And then kind of, I guess, progressing it. Next scene or next thing. So we're back at the guild. We've got Rat and Azolf, and pretty much he's like, oh yeah, I got 6 coppers instead of 4. I can save 2 and I can actually eat. And then Rat's just like, nope, think again. You've got to pay for this
Hmm.
other person who has
Hmm.
only an association by you talk to them. But what a twist. She's a mute, which I guess played a bigger part than I thought it should have. But due to her being a mute, and then, skipping ahead a little bit, she gets mutilated or whatever, and her
Hmm.
face is all jacked up, and it's like, oh, well, talking would hurt. But she doesn't talk. I'm sorry, your face looks
Uh,
like, ground meat, but it doesn't matter. And then, just kidding. She says her first words, and now she can talk, so now she's in pain. And I don't know. It was a little flair that I was confused.
yeah.
Well, do
Yeah.
you want me to explain? Let me try and explain it to the best of my ability to you guys.
No.
Well,
No
so
spoilers.
no,
No major spoilers, at
no
least.
major. Well, like just in that scenario, because obviously, talking from a realistic perspective, because I feel like that's where like we wanted to aim for this book series, aside from the magic using and all that fun stuff. Um, we have this girl. She's 8 years old in this guild. She probably has never met her parents or had
Hmm.
anything parent related. Uh, she, for as far as we know, she's never really said anything in this guild, and probably for a good reason, because who would want to talk to a bunch of nasty kids who live on the streets? But
They're
it's
all
just like
slave born, right?
pretty much. It's just like going to school, and like you're at a new school, you can go to a new class, and the teacher's like, sit wherever you want. And that's essentially telling you, go sit next to the people who you're going to sit next to and talk to for the rest of your time here. And so it's kind of like that scenario where like you just try and find like a friend, or like someone, you're like, all right, guess you're my new friend.
Yeah.
Are you
And
touching your table?
Maybe.
Okay. I keep hearing like little
I,
mic moment things.
Mm.
my bad. I was moving my mic. I
All
apologize.
good.
You're good.
So
pick
yeah,
where
like
you want to sleep in the slums. These are
yeah,
going to be your buddies forever.
exactly. And she just happens to be in the main story of of Azoth and their friend Jarl.
Yes.
But like in that retrospect, uh, the only thing like as a kid, or not necessarily a kid, but like as you grow older, the only thing to do trying to get out of the slums is either, you know, portray yourself out for money, like your body,
Hmm.
or try and gain a skill so you can get out to make money to get out.
Yeah.
Those are your only two options. And the third option would just be death, obviously.
Yeah. There's not a lot of good options for them, right? Which is why when Jarl comes to them with his 4 years worth of saved coins, they're pretty much trying to figure out how to get out, right? And they want to apprentice to Durzo Blint, the end all be all, best of the best, number one wet boy.
I'm sorry, but that was something else that threw me off. Like, I like epic names like the Crusader, the Night Angel. Like, those were names. Like, Wet Boy. I just kept thinking of like Water Boy and you can do it all night long. And then I kept thinking of like, I don't know. It didn't solidify the name for me. Like you say Wet Boy, and I'm not like, that guy's got hidden superpowers and is gonna murk everybody. I was just like,
Yeah.
eh.
Yeah. Yeah, they could have chosen a different name for that. Something way
We
more badass for sure.
Yeah, I was about to say we didn't talk about this beforehand, but my mind was also on that like what like they're not assassins, right? They're wet boys. I'm like, assassin sounds a little bit more intimidating to me. Um and then they talk about how they have debtors, right? They don't have contracts because,
They're
once
that good.
once yeah, they're just that good. Um, and these are the same people that interact with like Mama K, who's like Lady Pleasure, who owns all these brothels. So like you say wet boy, my mind goes that direction sooner than it goes um, over the top assassin.
Yeah. Well, that could just be what this book was trying to portray as well.
Mm,
Introducing all the new terminology
mm-hmm.
that he wants you to understand, so that the next couple books you don't have to remember like, oh yeah, like what's this? It's like it's already ingrained. Assuming you go from one book to another, it's already ingrained in your mind. Like this is what this person is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think
go
the
ahead.
only difference between, or at least if I remember correctly, between a normal assassin and a wet boy is the fact that a wet boy can use magic. And I think that's the only difference.
That,
Right.
and then I think they emphasized, or well, I guess some of the Wet Boys also have a additional kill count, or they hit extras, or they don't just hit their target, they hit other. Um,
Yeah, that
No, I
was the
think
second
that
one. That
no,
was
that's introducing the other wet boy
or
that's
so
in like the
that's where
series.
it was more of Durzo Blint, pretty much emphasized that we just hit our target, and that's why you're
mhm.
not just an assassin, you're a wet boy because you just hit your target. And then it was like, just kidding, plot hole, not really. This other wet boy is, a butcher and just murks everybody. So yeah,
I Yeah, I think that just might be. It's not necessarily
perspective.
well, yeah, the perspective of like this guy's a perfectionist. Like Durzo
Mm,
Blunt is trying to be as perfect as he can by labeling who he wants to die, because it's that could also play into his confidence of why he's the best around. It's like, oh, you're giving me this person to kill. It's like, I'll be calling it a debtor because this person is definitely going, or this person's not going to live after I'm done with
yeah,
them, kind of deal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Want to reel it back in and try to hit as many of the major points as possible without going too far over because this is a long book and we are still pretty early. I enjoyed how they kind of introduced Jerzo Blint, the couple scenes that we get a bit more of the overall big picture with the world kind of following along on some of his missions as he eavesdrops on the general and some of these other key players. We already talked about it, but it was just really hard for me initially to follow all these big character names, right? Because we get introduced to a number of the houses pretty early on, and then these big key players, and then all the potential for succession. Part of that is a bit of the epic fantasy piece. Um, but yeah, the early in the first arc, it's the big conflict between Rat and Azoth, right?
Yeah.
Um, we learned that Rat is one of the God King's spawns or children, and I guess there's over 100 of them, like
Or did we learn that
140
towards the
something.
beginning?
No, we
I
we found out towards the
Yeah,
end.
I thought that was a linchpin for the ending. Anyway,
uh I thought when he met with
Um,
the mage guy, it was part of his coaching with Azoth. I
yeah,
could be
but they did
misremembering.
we didn't know what was going on at that point, like in the
Okay.
story. Like
Okay.
obviously he met up with someone who played a bigger role
Mhm.
in the story, but as far as the reader is concerned, like this part only concerned like he's meeting up with someone to help him take over the guild and potentially a couple other things, and that's really all we get. We don't really learn that he's the God King's son until like
yeah, way
the
towards the
end.
end, I have their
Okay.
final
Okay.
confrontation. So
Okay.
that's at the beginning we get to meet the Sakage or whatever, the group, and that's kind
hmm
Hmm.
of like our main focus group. We get to see a little bit of Rats, got ulterior people, and that's where Azoth pretty much has immunity without getting immunity, and they're trying to do
hmm
a I guess power vacuum type deal where it's like, hey, I'm the head honcho. Oh wait, but there's this other faction. It's like, well, you can't have a monopoly because then people just get disinterested and find their own thing. So you have, two heads of a snake kind of deal. And then, he's designed just to be there to be a way to kind of cull the numbers and the non-believers, so to speak. But then he's also there to, counterpoint or to be in opposition. Yeah,
There's definitely a lot of political layers that they introduced us into the story, right?
yeah.
Um, they're in the slums, the the kingdom versus the nine, and
Versus the
then
God
on the
King or God
yeah, and
Emperor,
then the
whatever.
right, and then the bigger scale of just the different kingdoms and factions at play there. Um, the big conflict with Rat, I thought was very interesting. Um, it goes without saying this is definitely a more mature book, a lot more graphic details, not for the faint of heart. Murder, assassination, rape, mutilation are all involved in this story. Which again, it's the slums. There's slavery. There's all these different elements to it there. What would you guys think of that overall first confrontation?
With Rat.
Yeah, just Azoth kind of like dragged his feet, right? And that's what led to
Oh,
Doll
okay.
Girl getting mutilated
So
and Durzo kind of go ahead.
it was all Azoth character development. So with all these other problems and just trying to survive in the world that they're in, he still wants to take care of this little girl, which she doesn't speak. We don't know what the connection is. There's not a whole lot, but he cares enough. And
Mm-hmm.
so he finally tracks down Durzo, and he's pretty much like, I don't take apprentices. I'm not doing this. I don't want anything, go away, whatever. And he keeps doing it. And finally, Durzo Blint is like, hey, so you've got to do something that you're not able to do. And he's like, ray of sunshine, I can do this. And then he's, pretty much can't wrap his mind around it because I think there's a Mama K instance later where she kind of puts it into perspective very well. She's like, if you were the kind of person who could have killed him on the first day, you wouldn't have been the kind of person who is now taking care of Doll Girl and cares for others' well being. So it's like a
Right.
pro and a con, but it's very character development, which
Mm-hmm.
brings it all together for the final scene for me. And sorry for jumping around, but like the whole story between Mama K and Durzo Blint and the lady who dies, um,
Her sister Vonda.
or yeah, Vonda,
Vonda.
between all that and like the whole thing is pretty much a Pocahontas thing where, oh, we come from different worlds. Oh, I've got to be this whatever, and we can't, be together. And if I have, someone I'm close to, it's the whole like superhero myth where I have to wear a mask because if they know my family, all these evildoers will come and kidnap my family. So they never get that closure. They never get that closeness. They pretty much just sit there insulting each other and relaying informations. And then through Azoff being the good guy that he is, taking care of, Doll Girl and doing all these other things and really coming to terms with I'm a killer. And then at the end where he's like, I don't care. I'm gonna do what I want. And that really it was the rat scene was very character developmental. You know, he didn't want to do it because he wasn't a cold blooded killer. But he wanted to take care of, Doll Girl and this other person who cares
Mm-hmm.
about. So he divided his resources that he's slowly gaining due to opposing Rat. And with that, he slips up. She gets mutilated, and now he's got this cold, determined direction.
See, while I do agree with you that there's definitely character development happening, I actually think uh, that the whole arc with Rat and Azoth is a character development for Azoth, Rat, Doggle, and Jarl. Because as we found out later in the series, or series in this book, there's lots of, like, you get to see Doggle as she grows up. You find out Jarl actually made it into
Mama K's
a Mama K's thing. What's it called?
or Pleasure House.
Yeah, Pleasure House. I was going to call it something else. The and then of course we found out about Rat later on too. But like this whole arc in the beginning is essentially uh, leading up to the point where like you find out how evil Rat is.
Mm-hmm.
You find out how not necessarily useless, but how um, innocent Dog Girl is. You find out how much how much crap Jarl's willing to take in order to achieve his goals. And then, of course, with Azoth, he's how much is he willing to put up with before he snaps?
I didn't. My first read through, I didn't expect all those other characters to have such a big role in the book,
Yeah.
which kind of surprised me. And I'm curious to see how books 2 and 3 played out.
You
Because,
will definitely see more of each of those characters.
oh, really?
Yes.
Each and every one, including Rat?
Uh,
No spoilers. I don't want to know. Just kidding.
like,
Just kidding.
well,
Just kidding. Nope. Nope.
Yeah,
End of the
he
book. He's dead.
already had his one revive. I think he's done, but I don't know.
Hey, I mean, so did Kylar, and look at him.
Well, but
I
he's
mean,
got his
he's
he's
cheating,
wearing his
okay?
epic gear. Like he's already, farmed his stats and he's got his, trinket on. So
nope. there's an expansion pack. Your gear means nothing. You gotta do it all again.
Yeah.
You know,
What's that
that
one
was
show?
vanilla.
What's that one anime show?
Oh,
Where you get to
that one?
revive. ReZero. That's what it is.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't gotten to that one yet.
It is a great show / manga. Highly recommend it. But essentially, the main character has that revive power. That's it. That's all.
Mm.
That's all he gets. Uh,
I
but
mean,
he,
if you're going to go for superpowers to get, that's not a bad one. Just
I
saying.
mean, like obviously, it follows that same trope of like you're in your normal town, you're doing your normal thing. You then you get transported to this fantasy world or whatever, and then of course, he has this power to revive if he dies. But it's very realistic because it's like you don't know that until you die. And then time gets reversed. Not time gets reversed and then he gets to figure out how to not die.
Oh wait, so it's like a
Oh,
Groundhog's Day thing?
like a loop?
Kind of like a loop, yeah.
Huh.
So like think of
Interesting.
it as a scenario, like you walk into this scene, everything's going fine, then all of a sudden you just get stabbed from behind. You die.
Huh.
Not very dramatic or anything, just that's
Do
how it
you keep
happened.
do you keep your memories?
Yes, you do.
Interesting.
So like now, like if you were to walk into this same spot, you know at this point in time, someone will come up behind you and try and stab you. So what are you
Mm,
going to do in order to prevent that?
Oh man, that would
I'm
mess with me so bad because I'm all about like the butterfly effect for time travel and how like if you change
uh
one thing or one scene goes differently, it changes the whole outcome of the universe or some crazy stuff. Anyway,
Well,
I
obviously,
we got some
yeah,
serious ADD here, guys.
yeah. We could talk about this for another hour or so, I'm sure.
Yes. We need to do an anime / manga geek out
Yes,
session.
yes,
Um, so yeah, he becomes an apprentice
yep.
to Durso Blint
yep. By killing Rat,
by killing Rat.
quote end
Uh,
quote.
quote end quote. Um, yeah, at first I was trying to figure the pieces out a little bit because he never takes apprentices, right? If that was the end all be all, for me, I was kind of trying to piece together my first pass through. Okay, why is Azoth so special and significant besides the fact that, he's our main character,
Yeah, it didn't
right?
come together until way later, but it all makes sense in the end.
Yeah, like so much of this book, it doesn't, I felt like the last quarter of the book, everything comes back,
Yeah, very much.
right? Like I was so there's like all these questions, and then I guess like half of them got answered in that last quarter.
I would say a lot of questions got answered. Not all of them, but a lot of them did. There's still some secrets in there. Like if we're talking just about book one.
Yeah.
But in terms of like when it comes to Azoth, we found out why he was selected and what his future holds, like where he's going to end up going.
Mm,
Yeah, very
okay.
much
And
so.
there's definitely some foreshadowing that you may or may not have picked up with Dorian, who is a very big player in the other two books.
Or
That
is
He's the seer, right?
yes, he is the
the
guy
madness?
who has. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the guy who he can see into the future
Yes.
at a cost of his life, obviously.
Yeah, and that's like at the very beginning, there's a guy who comes to the castle and is pretty much like, wait, you gave me this name, but now there's two of them. And we have that weird scene where, anyway, so yeah, he was a big impact of getting that guy over there. And then he
Mm-hmm.
was a big impact of Ask Mama K, where he's sneaking into the uh oh, I want to say apothecary, but that doesn't sound right. Anyway, he's sneaking into the poison place that he's getting all his supplies from, and they,
Mm-hmm.
you know, interrupt or blindside him, and he's like, WTF? And then, yeah, then you get the, wait a minute, that's my brother? Wait, who's your brother? And
That was very
it
subtle.
was very subtle, and after, or once we get to the ending, I'm like, oh my bejesus, this guy has another stone. It's right there. Power
Yes.
up, get your other stone, but we still don't even know what this stone does. Or
Yes.
orb
Yep.
or
Yes.
whatever.
There's so
Whatever
much of
it's
the
called.
magic system we don't understand at this point in the
Well,
series.
he can't even
It's kind of
use it.
hinted at.
Or,
Who
so,
can't
I
even use it?
guess, what's up?
Who can't use what?
Or
One of the
Azoth.
three dudes. Oh, yeah.
Azoth can use well at the end of the book he can now utilize that
Yeah.
stone.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he utilizes it perfectly or significantly has yet to be determined. But
Yes.
he knows what it can do to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So anyway, we get Apprentice to Durzo. We get,
Mm-hmm.
we now know why Mama K is important somewhat because she houses the lower guilds and kids can be kids for a little while during the winter and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That was another thing that was kind of a big question for me. Like, if Mama K is so important and so powerful, why is she making time to tutor this boy? You know what I mean? Like, I know it's a story, but we literally find out later that she is the leader of the nine, pulling all the strings. And again, later we find out that Mama K and Durzo Blint have a thing and they're lovers and all this, and like, yeah, there's that element of it. But how does she have time for
I think it's
this?
more just the information gathering because
Mm,
she
See,
lets the rat and all the guild people in to A, keep them from dying, B, to collect information, and then C, she's like setting down the foundation because she is one of the nine, because she is going to be the main one. And we find out later that Durzo Blint explained that after Vonda died, he's now been forsaken by his shiny and no longer has the power of resurrection and these other things. And after serving it for 700 plus years, which we also find out later, it is, he essentially made the wrong call. And so much of his fundamentals and his foundation of, life is meaningless, this, that, and the other, that comes together. And so I think for her, she's trying to develop and cultivate that relationship with Azoth or whatever his new name is, so that she can get that information of the soon to be Night Angel superpowered guy. And so I think that's what the majority of it is. I think it's all information gathering and knowing that he is going to be the successor of the powers, really trying to develop that.
see, I don't see here. I don't not necessarily disagreeing with you, but there's definitely ulterior motives to the fact that she trained slash helped out Kyler slash Azoth.
yeah.
Um, there's, I would say, in her position, being the leader of an underground, I don't want to say cult, but like government system for the entire city that makes the head most decisions out of everyone. Obviously, she's going to want connections. That's what she's the master of anyway. So
Right.
like she's training up the next, as you said, successor. But at that point, I don't think she realized what his role was going to be. As far as she knew, he was going to be the next wet boy.
Well, I
Right.
think I thought there was a spot where they mentioned Durzo essentially told her the night that the Kakari or whatever disowned him. And then there was also a point where um, Azoth brings Doll Girl to insert name here, paperwork, misspent youth guy,
Count
and then
Count
Durzo.
Count Drake.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Count Drake.
Yeah, Count Drake, and where Durzo pretty much beats the ever living kid friendly word out of Azoth, and then he has to save her, or the paperwork guy comes in and gets Blint off of Azoth, and when that happens, the insert epic name sword changes colors, and with the color change, we get to see him lose his hope because he knows what Azoth is. He's a
Mm.
Kara for empty whole
Coffer.
soul, epic power up slot achieved character. And so after he has that moment, then he knows that this kid is not going to call an additional epic trinket to his side. He calls his own epic trinket that he has, which is the whole conflict for the second or third half of the book, where he starts to bond it. He's in a rage. He stops him from bonding it. Then, when they have their final battle, he knows the only way it can finish bonding is if the original owner dies. And so I'm a little puzzled because we get to the point where he finds the world orb thing, and Azoth absorbs it. So he already has his first power up, and then we get to the fight with Durzo Blint, and he's supposed to kill him to get his second power up, or his main, his secondary skill tree, where he can now use the epic sword and
Now he
res.
can mix and match.
So he's got 2 trinkets. I
So
don't know.
here's
There's a
all
lot.
right. Let me break it down for you. All
All
right.
right.
All right. So first off, I'm just gonna start with Durzo.
Okay.
Durzo is an important character that we must for this book that played a huge role in the upbringing and character development for Kylar. But so obviously, when the book began, 3 months before that, his lover Vonda died based on a decision that he made, which was either save this trinket or save her.
Yeah.
And he chose the trinket over her, and that messed with him.
Yeah, that's why he lost the divine favor or whatever.
Yeah, like obviously he started something happened. But he didn't choose Azoth simply because it's Azoth. I'm somewhere throughout,
because he can see magic in people. He saw that he was a Karafer or whatever, that he had a hole in his aura, that insert trinket here.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was like, he chose him because he knows the potential. Like, this person is definitely going to be someone who can take over, kind of deal, or like be the next, some successor, whether it be for him or whatever.
I thought there was a transition there. I thought it was because he knew he had the hole in his aura or whatnot, that he would call a different one to him. But then after the first one started bonding, or after his started bonding, he gave up on it. He was like, well, dang, he didn't call a new one. He just called mine, since mine is no longer.
Well, it's not like he called for it, but it's like we saw the excerpt. So like the scenario that you're talking about happened a couple months after he was taken in as Durzo's apprentice.
Yeah.
Where he gets the snot beat out of him at the Drake's house or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he holds that sword. It glows. At that point, Durzo understands, like, okay, now I'm worried, because this, like, at that point, he's like, all right, this kid is going to take over for me
Yeah.
at some point. Whether he doesn't know when that's going to happen, but he knows it is going to happen. Going to the trinkets, those 6 stones, different colors mean different things, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, there's a breakdown somewhere in there.
Yeah. He has the 7th stone.
Yeah.
They were looking for, what was it, the white one? The stone of edges or worlds or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking for the white one, which is somewhere in this town. And so is a bunch of other people, but he was looking for it as well. He knows Azoth or Kylar has this hole, and that was potentially what he was going to fill it up with. But instead, when it happened, Azoth or Kylar got a hold of his trinket, the black one, which absorbed into his skin, blah, 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 and then pooped it out. So the trinket, like I don't know if I want to call it powers or whatnot, but like all the excess power that came out of it was now in him. So that is the first. So he has like half of it. We'll call it half. So he doesn't get 2 trinkets.
Okay, because I was confused because he gets the first one when Mama K kind of sabotages him, and there's a lot that goes on in that scene. I didn't care for it, but essentially they're both in the tower in the king's castle. There we go. They're both in the castle, and all this is going on, and of course the other person who can see the future predicts all this, and it's like a square box will give you hope. If you do the right thing once, it will cost you everything you love. If you do it twice, other crazy, your life sucks and then you die stuff. And then
You have a way of describing stuff, Pete. We need to get you just out there to, just like demo describe stuff for people. If anybody wants to contact us, email us at geekonmysleeve at gmail.com for any business opportunities. Peter will suggestive sell your product in the most epic way possible.
And so
Continue,
we've
Pete.
got like 3 different things going on. The wife of the king who came back from a trip, who is now talking to the son. And yeah, so she's got a husband, and yet there's the king who she's cheating with on top of the king's son who she's cheating with. And he's all like, oh yeah, this will be easy. And then he dies. So he dies, whatever. All the blood, all the gore. She doesn't know what she's doing. And okay, side note, there was one point that really irked me, that really just ticked me
one?
the freak off, because when she's describing that she knows a wet boy was the killer, or a wet boy stole the stone, the guy interrogating her is like, oh, how do you know it's a wet boy? How do you know what a wet boy is? And like literally everybody else is just throwing this word around like it's nobody's business. It doesn't matter. Everybody knows. That irked me a little bit. Anyway, and then she was pretty much like, oh, well, why are you putting words in my mouth? I said an assassin was here. And it's like, they're the same thing. They're not the same thing. Come up with a better name. And meanwhile, Durzo Blint is in his disguise, and Mama K set up Azoth to kill Blint because of ulterior motive, hullabaloo, backstory, side tangent. And so they're both there, and I thought it was so Azoth eventually gets to the point to where, man, the transitions between these absolutely suck. Because I thought it was Chicky Poo who was having the affair, who just murked what's-his-face, that he walks in onto that. He walks in onto that, but it wasn't, because he walks in on Doll Girl, of which is by a new name, and she...
Aline.
I'm sorry?
Aline,
who is in the castle, and so... he finds it, and I thought that was the one he got. I thought he got that, because that is where, he hears other people and he knocks out Doll Girl and regrets it for a while. But anyway, he knocks out Doll Girl and then he's already absorbed the stone. So I didn't think it was from Blintz. I didn't think it was Blintz thing that he absorbed. But then Blintz gets there and he's like, "Oh hey, WTF? Thanks a lot. You just bonded it." And he's playing through all these different scenarios. And Kyler's like, "Well, okay, I'm right. I'm lawful good merkin people, so I'm gonna go and kill me. Just kill me." And he's like, "Well, thanks, great. This is useless." And he just like chucks it out the window. And so anyway, so we get our first little power up there, which I'm super confused about. And I thought they were two separate things, but you're saying it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it
the
works without it
initial
being in your possession.
Yeah, so think of it.
Yes.
So it's not like a stone. Like if we're thinking Avengers right now, it's not like that. So like obviously if one person has it, they have the power. If another person has it, then takes it from them, then they have the power. It's not like that.
Because they
So
have
it's
to
just
die before someone else can bond it.
correct.
Complete the bond.
So the bonding part that you're referring to is that absorption where it just like went into the hand.
Yeah.
That is him attempting to bond with it, and then it spat it back out.
Or no, I thought he did that. I thought he spat it back out and was like, "Oh, hey, here, just kidding. I didn't do that on purpose. You can have it."
No, I don't think he did it intentionally, but like the body took it in,
Okay.
like filled the spot, that empty hole for the energy, whatever. It filled that hole, and then the physical like trinket, stone, whatever, got popped back
Yeah,
out.
where then
So,
he
so
chucks it out the window.
now it's empty. So think of it, it's like a reverse Dragon Ball. Think of it like that. So like obviously when the Dragon Balls are used, it turns to stone. It's useless. After a year, it turns back into a Dragon Ball.
Okay.
So it's reverse. So like he takes the power, it gets put in that spot, and then it popped the stone or the
The
now
housing
inert.
item.
Yeah. So that is now useless. He can literally throw it into the river and it's not going to do anything.
Okay.
The thing that was going to complete the bond was the killing of Durzo Blend. Because the person who already had the power is still alive. So he has like half the power. That's why you see him like every once in a while, like he'd jump and then all of a sudden his jump has like he can jump over like two houses kind of deal.
Yeah.
And he has no
It
idea what he's
was
doing.
very confusing between like the power forsaked Durzo Blint, but then it was available for other people to take, but then they couldn't. And there was another person who had the power who was about to die, which caused Durzo to lose his power because someone else had the power, but then they're about to die, and you gotta be there right when they die so that you can grab it. But just kidding, it was a fake, but it wasn't really a fake because now Kyler slash Azoth is in the capital, in the castle, and it was some king who gave it to his mistress, who apparently was but wasn't Doll Girl because the mistress gave it to someone else. And so I could not track whatsoever. We've spent 24 hours going Dragon Ball and charging up our powers. Please use them.
Yeah. As I said, like at the very beginning, this is definitely a character development book. The prequel, you're going to see a lot more, especially in the third book, but a lot more in the next two books.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, we're only seeing a small bit of what it can potentially do right now, and yeah,
a lot of teasing, a lot of foreshadowing in this book.
Yeah, it's trying to set everything up for the next two books.
Okay.
More questions than answers.
That's a good book though, especially when it's a series. I'll give him this. As much as the start was slow for me, I felt like the ending wrapped everything up very well. I am satisfied with the ending of the book, and I can comfortably shelf this one, even though I want to continue the series and be okay, unlike some other books. There still are a lot of questions. I still am very curious about the magic system and how everything works. And there was a lot of kind of foreshadowing on the grander scale with the God King and all these other powers and the
Well,
Three Musketeer, Dorian, the blacksmith, and the how do you describe it? Not really a pirate.
He's like
Um,
a mage.
yeah, well, they're all mages, but um, yeah, the third dude that went to Logan's family um,
So
when
long.
he was yeah, when he was busy poking poking the mother and getting her all worked up and banished to her rooms. Um, but yeah, curious about their piece and the grand story and how that all ties in and the magic. Um, and we really only got to see one or two of these 6, 7 magic items, right?
that we know of, because I think the See Into the Future guy probably has one. Because, like, honestly, if Durzo Blint has been alive for 700 years,
Hmm.
I'm gonna be a little confused if your brother, which I hope, I mean, maybe his mother has one, and she's still popping out babies, and it's like a brother where one's 700 years, and the other one's like 30, but I was severely,
Uh,
I
Who are
think
we talking about?
we're talking about
yeah,
the
I
I
don't
can
I
see
don't
into
think
the future guy.
Dorian's not Durzo's brother.
No,
Dorian is Rat's brother.
correct.
No, no.
Yep.
Dorian
Because this is the
is
whole
one
Mama
of the
K.
God King's sons.
I Okay, then I completely misread that because while he's sneaking into the shop, he's collecting
Mm,
his stuff to kill people and his poisons,
yeah.
and they have that whole, hey, you need to kill my brother, ask Mama K, and then Mama K tells him, hey, there's a thing in the castle, you have to go, okay, this guy, who isn't really this
Hmm.
guy, who is Durzo, who the
Hmm.
foreshadowing See Into the Future guy can see. That's what I thought it was. I thought it was because there was no connection to Rat in there. Because it was saying that
Well,
Ask Mama K, which was the Durzo Tyler Battle Doll Girl revamp.
so
That
A
yeah,
summary by Pete. Read
yeah,
this book.
I'm telling you, geek on my sleeve at gmail.com for all business related content. If you want Peter to plug your stuff or do any sponsored videos, he is the man that can say a whole lot
without saying
and
anything.
yet
In
without
about
saying
20
anything.
seconds.
Why,
Okay, so
why
I
settle?
misread that completely because I thought it was saying because that made sense to me because I figured he had another one of the orbs that granted him
Mhm.
a power, but then I was also so confused because we got like no involvement in the magic system, but then there are like three different variants on the magic, and the one that the guy uses for the foreshadow is destructive and corruptive, but then there's like a male version, a female version of this other power, but apparently he can use all three, something about select people and rings and tattoos and whatnot, of which is also the guy. I don't know. I'm confused, to be honest. There's so much
It,
going on.
that was one of the challenges with the book. Like they did the foreshadowing, they did the teasing, and Dorian did the fortune telling or telling of the future. And in all of his kind of he even talked about it with his buddies, right? Like he can only share so much to kind of nudge them along that path because he can see the multiple different paths. And when he was going through and doing all his future seeing stuff, that's when he dropped in my brother. But before that, there were some of the other pieces of seeing a girl crying over him, and that was Doll Girl, right? and just some of the other different
Yeah, so
foreshadowing pieces.
he does a lot because he sends the initial guy who's supposed to be the advisor of insert name here, and
You're talking about Logan?
okay, so the see the future guy sends the advisor of who gets like the same freaking comment from everybody. Oh, you don't have the tattoos. Oh, you don't have the rings. Oh, it looks like you can be civil instead of strutting around in half naked attire. So that's like the same thing that happens with all of them. Okay, if you're going to show us that, just let us
Ankles.
see that. And then he also has he brings the sword, of which we don't get to see anything of except for the random guy at the end who picks it up off of a bridge because it looks cool.
No, there is one use of it. I don't know if
He
you caught.
he burns out all the mages, right?
Yeah, he kills like a whole bunch of them, like 100 of them, or whatever, however many.
What?
Yeah, he stood on top of the statue, and
Yeah.
he called out to everyone so they could hear and stare at him. And then in like 3 seconds, he literally like a bunch of like I don't know if it was light or whatever it was, like came out. We'll just call them tentacles because in everything anime, whatever happens is tentacles. So
Right.
comes out, stabs all of them at the same time, and then murders all of them. Like that was the one usage that you saw.
Okay, maybe
And
I was confused for that scene too, because I thought like the first person
It
tried
sounds like you.
something and then we went to a different person and it was like, no, not like that, like this. And then everybody died anyway. So I was so confused. I don't know.
I think part of that is just Brent Week's writing style, because a lot of times I felt like
There was no
we were
transition.
we were following
Yeah, I would agree. It
part,
was very difficult to follow if you
yeah,
didn't know what was going on.
because like the scene you were talking about, John, we went to the maester guy or whatever who was kind of mentoring Rat, and he took the Logan's bride away, and we're kind of following his train of thought and everything. And then we see through his eyes um, the one guy climbing up on the statue with the sword and calling out to everyone. That way they grab their magic power abilities. And I think that was an important step, because then when he activated it, it had everything going on with the magic and tentacles or whatever else
The
was going
magic
on there.
was so
Well,
confusing because you get another scene where I can see the future, has the other guy open up to his powers so that he can use the other guy's powers because he hurts himself when he uses his own powers and he like straps them to himself and just goes all Tarzan, and it's like, oh, this wasn't because of luck, this wasn't divine favor, I moved it with my magical powers. It's like, okay, all that build up just for grabbing a rope.
All right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it was very small, but he did include the how to, like how magic works in this world. And there's two ways to gain magic: through the sun and through your skin.
Yeah, we get to see that at the battle,
Which is
or
why
the tournament.
so Solon is from, there's like 6 different countries or whatever. Solon's from a country that is primarily pirates or whatever, and they're half naked all the time, so they can absorb as much magic as they can
through the skin
through
or
the
the
skin.
eyes. Yeah.
The bad guys that we see are called Veerdmeisters, and they're from a different country that like all their magic gets absorbed and sits in what is called Veer, which I'm just going to call veins or whatever,
Oh, that's
inside the
right.
skin. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like inside their body.
The black tattoo looking stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the more powerful you are with it, the least, like, you can absorb those black Veer back into your body. So like no one will know you're a Meister or whatever. And I think they announced, or he said something like, the more powerful you are. You guys remember like Lord of the Rings when Gandalf like stood up to Frodo? He got like super angry. Or no, it was Bilbo. like
Oh,
at the
okay.
very
Oh
beginning.
yeah, and he like blasts
Yeah.
everything, kind of.
Yeah, and like everything got kind of dark,
Mm-hmm.
like in this house.
Mm-hmm.
That like the more powerful you are, like when you release magic, the less light there is, and you'll start to see the Verdmeisters that we're seeing. They are indeed the main bad guys. Like this is the bad guy country where all evil happens.
Now, is this like real bad guys or just kidding? I was protecting you from other things, bad guys. Don't tell me. But
No spoilers. No spoilers.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Yeah,
So, in the mindset of time, there's a lot of good and important things that happen in the middle of the book. We bounced around a lot. I'd like to open it up for any key moments kind of in the middle of the book that you guys felt were important. I know there's a whole lot there, but I really want to kind of get into the ending climax where we talked a little bit about it, where uh, the prince gets assassinated. Durzo was supposed to be killing the prince, but he ends up getting blackmailed by the king to work for the king, which he said he'd never do. Durzo is actually working for Rat, who is now trying to take over the Nine and the kingdom, and just
and
the
then
climax there.
Jarl or whatever, who was Azov's guild buddy, who got a recommendation from Kyler to Mama K, and then became a pleasure house employee, of which is now the new of the Nine leader because Mama K did people wrong and is expecting to die. But since she didn't die, what's his face, Jaral is still acting as if he is the new sage of the Nine and orchestrating people getting out. But then where does that leave Mama K? Because Durzo Blint is dead. Maybe, not really, maybe Forsaken dead. And Mama is no longer necessarily needed because the other guy is now taking over. And I'm so confused, to be honest.
All right. Let me break it down.
Break it down for us, Sean.
Breaking
Help us out.
it down. All right. So
I'm ready.
Talking about Jarl here. So obviously we know he's a friend of Azoth from the very beginning of the book. Rat did some pretty nasty stuff to him, including beating and raping him almost on a daily basis. And because of his experiences with that, obviously sex for him kind of became a non-issue, which kind of leads into how he's part of the pleasure houses. And he's a pretty you kind of get it when he's saving up money. He's a smart guy. And so like he obviously catches on things pretty quick. Finds out about Mama K, what's going on there. Finds out like her role, what she plays. Got some weird stuff going on. Carl.
Sorry, am I distracting?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Your
baby face.
I would say your baby face is the best thing I've seen in a long time. So, the so he comes into contact with Mama K. Mama K is going to be retired, but she's going to be pulling strings from behind Jarl. So Jarl's the new leader, but she's gonna like guide him in the direction that she
add up because there's that whole like first kill with Azov, and I've never seen anyone who pays the full toll for leaving. They always grab a bag of goodies and it slows them down and they never make it. And so Kyler murks him. And then we get the pen guy who trains him how to be a noble, and he's the only guy
I'm trying.
who
You confuse me with names because you don't use them, and I'm like, wait, who are we talking?
He's not even consistent about his nicknames.
so
Go from paper pusher to pen guy
the
to
individual who gives Azoth the new name Kyler, who also trains him how to be a noble,
yes.
Count
that
Yes.
guy is the only one who left and is still somewhat a decent human being and didn't die. But
Mhm.
Mama Kay, since she is the end-all be-all of this underground secret organization, that like just
Mhm.
doesn't add up, because these are a bunch of cutthroats who, you know, someone sent a guy after Durzo and he's like, oh, well, you're dead. Hey, thanks, bye. And I don't know.
If you want to find problems with the story, Pete, I think we've established that we can find them. Reeling it back in, Peter, most importantly, did you get your action itch scratched
No.
in the final conclusion?
I did not.
There was some fight scenes.
Their
Well, the
biggest
major fight scene
conflict
was Durzo and Kyler.
of their concluding fight scene was literally like, I have to do this. Well, I'm not gonna do it. You need to do it. I'm not gonna do it. I beat up your girlfriend. What? Rage. Just kidding. I'm sitting on a ceiling. There's nothing around. Oh, we're doing the exact same thing. One shot, one kill. Oh no, I'm dying. I didn't poison it. I wasn't gonna kill you. I lied about everything. So like, no.
Moral
My
of the
magic
story.
was teased. I didn't get any conclusion to how my magic worked between the 8 different magics.
Well, here's the difference between normal action and this action. This is fought by like assassin-esque type people, where it's the name of the game is hide. Like that is
Okay,
the
I
main
guess that's true.
way.
I don't follow a
to
lot
fight.
of assassin-esque books.
Assassin's Creed, like playing those types of games. Like that is you want like this isn't like run and gun, you know, push you're the first person out to war, you got to kill everyone you see. This is like hide in the shadows, wait for the most opportune time and kill who you need to kill and then get out.
He is the shadows. Bringing it back to the video game theme, I think Assassin's Creed is probably the closest analogy we could get with this book. I've seen it referenced a lot online of the Way of Shadows and Assassin's Creed being very similar. My takeaway from their fight was if you're going to pop garlic nonstop in your mouth, good luck stealthing anywhere, because that's what gave him away, right? When he got a whiff of that garlic breath right up in his face, and he's like, "Oh wait, Master did the same thing."
It's like, wait a second, you eat garlic, and he's just like, "How's your day?" It's like, oh man, it's like, close your mouth. You got.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like there was a good amount of action in the castle. Looking
There was
back,
a lot of stuff going on.
yeah, we didn't get a lot of the actual moves per se in combat, which may be a bit where Peter's coming from. Like a lot of the fight scenes, we kind of heard about it, but it wasn't really visually drawn out. Parry, counter parry, this, that, or the other. I felt like it might just be Brent Week's writing style. You kind of follow the other elements in the fight scene, but there was a lot going on there. I felt at the end.
Yeah, the ending
Between the poisoning, between everybody getting slain, when Kylar took out a full boat and just like all those pieces.
Well,
Um,
let's look at the full picture here, at the end. At the end, so obviously we have Durzo versus Kylar. That
mhm.
whole bit is going on while what's that
Under
country?
siege. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like I don't remember the country's name, but like the city that they are in is getting uh, covertly besieged at night, and no one really knows what's going on. So there's a bunch of confusion to begin with.
Mhm.
However, we're still following the main characters as much as we can. So a lot of the fighting that you see is in the background. Like, so
Mhm.
obviously we still have this major fight being fought, but we don't really need to know about that because we're following Kylar, we're following Durzo, we're following
The
Dorian,
general.
the general,
Mhm.
So the
Barnes.
ending really ticked me off as well because we've built
Uh,
up this empire. We know a little bit about the God King. We know a couple of descendants are over here, but then due to the S word organization of which Mama K's the head, invisible head, is destroying itself. That way, only the nobles die, and that way we can be conquered, and that way all the peons don't die, which really has no relevance. And so we built up all this stuff just to be like, just kidding, let them take us. Oh, just kidding, I have a pure heart. I'm Kylar. I'm gonna protect everybody. Um, and then we get Durzo being like, "This one's for you, kid," and and whips out his bow and just like takes out a couple of the big guys on the other side. I like, and then at the ending, like, so we've got Doll Girl and we've got the Night Angel Kylar, and the whole
Jarl.
book, the whole first book is about Mama Kay and Durzo Blint and how they had a love and there was a sister involved and they have a kid and Mama Kay's like, "Oh, I shouldn't show him love because he won't accept it, this, that, and the other." And so they were separated. They were together but separated, couldn't ever find love. And here's Kylar like, "I'm lawful good. I'm gonna take you in my arms and we're gonna go take this baby, not my baby, and start a life together." So I like
s-
he totally 007s it and gets the girl, but our whole world is upside down. All the nobles are dead except for the one guy who's in the pit, which I'm waiting for his return, and that
Yeah.
was a whole like big
Ooh.
side arc.
You'll
And
at
then
least he still has his coin
yeah.
purse. Um,
yes. Which that's what I'm going to call mine from now on.
yeah. What did he tell them to refer to him as? King
Yeah.
or something like
So
that?
yeah, we got a Return of the
So if
King
that's not
vibe.
foreshadow, there you go. There you
You
go.
you guys will love the second book because you get to find out all what's going to happen inside that pit.
Fun
It is
times.
it is some interesting. If you thought this book was graphic in the beginning,
Yeah.
the like you get to really understand the mindset of Brent when he talks about the pit.
It's definitely a dark fantasy. Um, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at your picture, your photo, like your face,
It's
and I can't
it
keep a
happens
straight
when I
face.
shave. I just get this baby face. Uh,
Okay.
Yeah, so there are
so
so many different aspects and things going on. So I guess for me, putting it all into perspective, the think John, help me out with names. The guy who gets sent to a different camp, that way they won't overrun us, but it's a slight, and he leaves his boy at home, names him the actual king.
Regis? Is that his name? Logan's dad?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I know it starts with an
so
R.
Logan's dad, towards the
Rimbold.
end,
Regnus. It's Regnus.
towards
Okay.
the end, gets like his whole family murked and is blamed for it.
Yes.
We
All
then,
for the name of the God King.
yeah, all in the name of the God King. All of our nobles are dead, except for this guy who is now being blamed for it. Just kidding, it doesn't matter because everyone who blamed you is now dead, but you're starting a rebellion because you literally are like, hey, do you have any morals or value? You were told to pick me up. You think I could have done this? Like, WTF, who sent your orders? Join me. I'm the good guy. So he's got his whole thing, which maybe we'll get back and we'll get our main town back, which honestly, I don't care about. It's pretty lame. But then it's just so much going on. We've got his son is in the pit. He is now a mercenary individual collecting people. Yeah. And then we've got Azov, who's like, I'm gonna ride my horse into the sunset with my, my lady and my master's baby. And yeah, but
You kind of hit it on the head. Like that's pretty much in a gist because of how Pete
Yeah.
summarizes everything. That is exactly what happened. Uh,
Well, and Jarl is still in the city. Mass exodus of those who have survived are getting out. Um,
this is all in the name of character building, by the way. He's building for the next two books. So literally, like as much frustration and confusion as you have,
it makes sense.
all the dots are going to connect when you get to that point in the next two books.
Okay.
okay.
For you, John, I will continue it for you, but I am frustrated.
Think of it like
There's a reason why there's almost 150,000 reviews on Goodreads, though, right? Like, as much as we gripe about it, um, I enjoyed the first book. It definitely felt more like a prequel to me than um, a lot of other first books. I think we could have gone like a quarter of the way in with the book and kind of condensed that and trickled some of the other details in elsewhere. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how book two picks up. Um, any other thoughts or details you guys want to throw in on book one, or are we ready to move into the housekeeping part of wrapping this up?
Before we do that, I wanted to ask you guys, out of everyone who is introduced, who is your favorite character? And chat if you want to provide what your favorite character was as well.
Yeah, and or if you're watching it later in the comments below, that's a tough one because there's a lot of interesting characters. Um, I really enjoyed Logan's story arc. Um,
Or which one was Logan
the
again?
Logan is Azaz's quote unquote new best friend.
Yes, the
The
prince.
super tall has a 12. He's a 13-year-old boy, but is the size of like 6'5".
Okay.
Yeah,
Deal.
yeah,
He's
gentle
that
giant
And who is
horde
now currently in the pit, right?
Yes,
who is now
that is
currently in the pit. Yes.
Okay, and that, real quick, side note. So the foundation of each of these characters' origins gets flipped on its head. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you start from. Azov started out in the slums, and now he's pretty much like paid like a king. And the king guy who you just named, who's now in the pit, went from life of luxury to I have a pointy stick, knife, and I'm going to be king. So now he's living in the pit, of which is supposed to be gruesome and graphic and gory. And, freaking, I've been alive for 700 years. Durzo Blint is now, taking a dirt nap. Mama K, who was, the brains behind the whole operation, is like, oh, I'm about to die. Here's my legacy. Oh, just kidding. And then, yeah.
Well, I think it just be boiled down to one word: karma. So you start off with a very bad beginning, you're probably gonna have like every character that had a bad beginning is having a pretty good end right now. Anyone who started off with a good end or beginning is now at a bad ending right now.
Yeah.
That's one of the things Durzo talks about, though. I'm trying to think of how he words it, but he didn't use karma, but he talked about the balance of like taking life and giving life, and trying to think of how he worded it. Anyway, favorite characters, Pete.
It would have to be the main guy. I mean, Azov, because like the whole time at the beginning, all this chaos is going on. He's about to die from a spider. He's got a knife in the face. Rats, taking advantage of his best friend slash, beats up his lady friend, and then at the end he gets a girl and he's trying to figure out his powers. Like, I understand we had the most insight and the most stuff from him, but it would have to be the Night Angel, just because like he has so much potential for growth. Like, we've seen what he can do, we've seen who he's been trained by, we know his moral compass, we know he's the lawful good, and then now he just got the other half of his soul slash trinket, superpower, and the girl. So
He wins.
Yeah.
How about you, John?
I can't really narrow it down to one person because as in with my other books that I've helped
influence your decision.
influence my decision. I am definitely a huge anti-hero type person. This book series definitely kind of fits into that. However, I do believe Azoth fits a little bit, not necessarily well into the category. Azoth is not the right type of person that I can support because he's too unpredictable for the position that he's in.
What?
I
felt like he was black and white.
If he is black and white.
How's that unpredictable?
But he's not unpredictable in terms of whether he'll make the right decision. Because he's a wet boy or assassin or whatever.
Yeah, but he's about to lead the city right off on his white horse into the sunset. Like, the city doesn't matter. The city's conquered. All our nobles, all our big people are dead.
Which that's a huge gray area for me because, like, as someone who's an assassin, I feel as though going and choosing the lover is not the correct path that I think he should choose.
Okay.
But that's just me personally. If I had to choose based on story, I think I would agree with Carl and select Logan as like definitely like this person. Like obviously he doesn't fit that anti-hero that I was talking about, but his story definitely hits a I don't know, a key note for me, I guess, based off how much like he's this super nice guy, and then his family gets slaughtered. The girl he loves is no longer a potential lover for him. His best friend just betrayed him. His other best friend, which I guess was the prince, is now dead. The country he supports is now at war. He's in a pit with a bunch of murderers and rapists. Like this, obviously, it can't get any worse than this. And like his story is going to be, I think he has so much more to put into the series here. If we're talking about the anti-hero though, my favorite would definitely be Hugh Gibbet. You don't really see a whole lot of him, but just the way like his play style is exactly what my play style is, which is murder everyone around you.
I was gonna say that's probably why I'm not assassin oriented, because I can't sneak. I just start GTA, doing GTA moves where I'm like, how many stars can I get? I'm still standing.
Yeah. Well, I've played a lot of Assassin's Creed games, and I would like to promote that my nickname is the loudest assassin ever. Like, I'll still get the target, but everyone's gonna know I got him. So
Kind of defeats the purpose, though, doesn't it?
it does.
Yeah. Leave no witnesses.
Yeah, like
Um,
who's gonna know I killed him if everyone's dead? So
Oh, don't you normally main a tank role anyway?
not really. I would
Not
say I do
anymore.
more DPS than anything.
Oh,
I only did tank for like a couple things,
I guess when I
like Star
played
Wars.
WoW, Star Wars, WildStar.
WildStar. I definitely played DPS because I was one of the shooter guys.
Okay,
Star Wars. I had different characters. Like I could literally be anything.
fair enough.
But I was also no, I was a tank on Star Wars, like my first character.
all right, ADD children, let's reel it back in. We already spent our time talking about video games.
No,
Final thoughts on book one. Like it, hate it. I think we know where Peter stands. He's willing to give book two a shot.
I
yeah.
guess in conclusion, it's very hard to follow. At the end, you finally get a little bit of a resolution, but we didn't get enough of the magic system for me to really love it. I enjoyed it. It did take a lot of extra time. It is kind of long. I guess I'm not an assassin playstyle type character, so yeah.
You, Pete, for this series, I know like you struggled with book one. Book two, I feel as though you might struggle through as well. But I am telling you right now, you will love book three.
Do we get
So
all 6/really 7 Infinity Stones?
I don't think they come. Like I think their information gets released, but I don't think their uh like their powers or whatever they have get revealed in terms of in a battle sense.
Okay.
Like so like you get to learn about them history wise, but you don't get to see it firsthand.
I'm
But that's on a side note. The whole action part that you're looking for, book three.
all right.
That's all the way book three. Uh, my opinion,
Got
though, obviously this is my third go through, so you kind of know where I stand. Love the series. I do agree with Pete and Carl that the transitioning could be better because it's very difficult to follow if you don't know what's going on. But as I said, like once you start reading the second and third book, like all these dots, all these questions that you had are going to start getting answered, and it's going to be that much better.
right on, right on. Um, I enjoyed it. I definitely recommend it with the warning of it takes a while to get invested. After I got invested, once I got partway through the book and things started to click and get momentum, I really enjoyed the story. Um, so yeah, next week we are going to do, since Peter loves assassins so much, another assassin book, Throne of Glass, a very widely popular book. Um, as we found Sarah J. Maas, you love her, you hate her. Looking forward to doing a side by side. We have a male author with a male assassin, aka Wet Boy. And then next week we'll have a female assassin by a female author, and it will be very interesting to do the compare and contrast at our normal time, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. We hope you can join us for discussion over the book, discussion over video games, ADD, hey, look at Shiny. We're going to talk about this over there too.
This one is going to be a little different as well because we are doing the prequel as well as the first book. So we have
Yes.
talked about off air doing these differently. New style, new book, new genre, new shiny to the max. Join us.
Join us as we try to break things, have fun, laugh, cry, curse, describe things in great detail without much detail. And yeah, thanks, John, once again for joining us.
No problem.
Pete, it's always a pleasure. We are now going to be pushing buttons and
Bye.
bye.
Adios.